Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to bring you on a tour around a few of the gardens to show you how things are blooming and changing for fall. It's finally cooling down here in New Jersey, and so it's a little more optimal for working outside in the beds. I've been weeding and cutting flowers and doing a lot of drying, and I just started decorating for fall. Given that I'm in New Jersey and we have such a change in the seasons, I usually wait to do my fall planting and decorating until pretty much the end of September, early October, just because to me, that's really when it feels like fall. I'm sure if you're like in California or something, it's probably a lot warmer there than it is here, but it's really starting to feel like fall now. I'm even wearing my sweater for sweater weather. So today I'll take you around a little tour, show you how I've decorated for the season so far, and show you how everything's still blooming. Everything still looks really good and really pretty. I love how things change in the fall, from the foliage to the blooms. Like I've even noticed some of the colors of the petals of my flowers that I've been growing look different this time of year. Like I have, for example, I've been growing dahlias, and every year I've noticed between like summer and fall, the same exact variety can look totally different. It's so wild to me. I really appreciate the change of seasons and how it impacts the environment. Like you can really just see a change in all of the things that you're growing, and it's just really a fun process. And it's one of the reasons why I love living in New Jersey. But anyway, let's take a tour and I'll show you what's happening in the gardens today.
So here we are in the welcome garden, and the way that I added some fall appeal is just tucking in a few pumpkins. I am going to be adding some pansies along the border, but really I don't need to do all that much here because the rudbeckia looks so amazing, right? I mean, I can't believe this flower is still going. It still looks so good. And we're in October. This is a volunteer rudbeckia that I really want to move. It's just kind of overtaking this space and I don't really love it here. I do have Sedum Autumn Joy and Gomphrena Truffula Pink that's still going. I really do like the combination of Sedum Autumn Joy with the rudbeckia and the Gomphrena. It's so pretty. I've got a hardy hibiscus here. Look at all of that celosia though. Isn't that fantastic? So many different varieties here. I planted some floret that I started from seed, but others reseeded from prior seasons. And I mean, look at how tall it is. It's taller than me. I'm 5'7", and this is at least 6 feet tall. It's definitely taller than 6 feet, some of these. But I've been cutting them, putting them in wreaths, using them in vases, hanging them in my she shed. Really great flower that starts blooming in the summer and goes well into fall. It's so worth planting, whether you buy it from the nursery or you start it from seed. Fantastic flower. I've got Euphorbia, Diamond Frost still blooming, and I mean, this Black-Eyed Susan just really took over this spot. I think I'm gonna dig it up. It's just too big. I'd rather put something else there. This one, gorgeous celosia, look at that. Zinnias, still blooming. They do have powdery mildew, but I'm gonna, leave them in for as long as I can. This garden has really been feeding the birds. Birds have been going down on the coneflower seed heads, so I really leave them as black as they are. I don't mind them. I am going to be adding more pansies along here. I did move some coleus in here. I have some yarrow here that I've dug and divided and moved around. Got some salvia. What else do I have in this garden? This is all of that celosia that reseeded itself in the front part of this garden. I am going to be working on getting out a good portion of this ivy because it's really aggressive and there's just so much of it. I mean, it's really beautiful over there, but I don't love it in here. So I'd love to relocate this over here. So I think I might even just take the flower heads with the seeds and just sprinkle them in and see if they reseed for next year. But you can see the pollinators are still loving this garden. I mean, dragonflies, butterflies, bees, birds, they love it. So I just have left it alone. But I do want to make some changes to it next year, because I really do not want this growing here in the front of the garden next year. We did get some corn stalks up, and I did do some flat stack pumpkins on top of my calibrachoa and supertunias that are kind of done blooming, but the foliage is still green, so I think I'm just kind of leaving it. I've started bringing my houseplants in, so my porch is a little bit of a mess as I'm still kind of figuring out where everyone's going inside. But I'm also adding some mums and, you know, kind of trying to get a little extra color in here. I do want to add some pansies in along here so that next year they bloom. And I'm going to be adding some spring flowering bulbs in here as well. So here we are at Floral Lane, still in full bloom. The black-eyed Susans are doing so great this year. I mean, they've been blooming since August and we're in October. My Gomphrana's doing amazing. I've been cutting a lot of these, adding them to bouquets, drying them for some projects or hanging in the she shed, and they look really good. I'm definitely gonna start Gomphrana from seed again next year. I do have some pansies that I'm gonna be planting in here along the border, so when my spring flowering bulbs come up in bloom, you know, you have a little bit more to see. Angelonia doing spectacular right now. The zinnias, they're pretty much done. I really should pull them. I mentioned this in a prior video, and I want to add some evergreens in here. So I want to get these out and tuck some in. I'm not sure what I want to get yet, but you know, it's got that end of the season powdery mildew. So, I mean, these flowers still look okay. You know, they still kind of add color, so I'm kind of hesitant to pull it just yet, but in other areas of my garden that we'll see, I definitely need to get them out. I've got some agastache in there. This supertunia is the only one I've kept. It's still kind of going and blooming, so I mean, why not keep it, right? I did not do anything with this pot. I just kind of left it. I don't know that I'm gonna. You know, there's so many other areas that I'm working on for fall, and I don't know. I just kind of don't care. So I'm letting that one go. Queen Lime Blush, zinnias. I've got a hole here. I definitely got to put some perennials or something in this garden. Amaranth I've been cutting. The cosmos are still going. They did get knocked over by a storm that we got last weekend. The cupcakes, they're still going. Sedum Autumn Joy, doing really well. I've been cutting some of that as well. The hydrangeas are pretty much done blooming. Even got a couple extra rose blooms, and I did not fertilize these again in August, so I'm kind of surprised. I kind of forgot this spot, actually. Let's see, what else do we have? Some more Angelonia. I've got some yarrow in here. It's a little moist in this garden, so I don't think this loves it. This actually was here in another area from the prior homeowner. It's okay. Like, the foliage is silvery. It gets these like yellow flowers, but I don't like love it. So I don't know, I might even pull it. I mean, I'm okay with pulling plants that don't really serve me or my garden design. So look at the foliage on that Amsonia. Isn't that so pretty? That just adds some really nice fall color, blooms in the spring, pollinator friendly, really great plant, easy to grow, totally worth planting. Great perennial. As you can see, I kept my liatris in there, and look at that fall color on it. I mean, I leave the seed heads because the birds like it. As we get to the end of the bed, we're in like Hosta Lane pretty much here. I do have a hardy hibiscus, and I'm definitely going to be adding a couple of plants in here. I need to get some evergreen, something evergreen there just to get that all year round color, and I'm probably going to fill in some more perennials for shade. I've got some lungwort in here that I really love, so maybe I'll dig and divide that and kind of move it around so there's more than just one plant. But you know, this end of the bed I definitely need to work on. As we head down to the potager and cut flower garden, it is still looking so beautiful, right? I mean, I am thrilled with this garden this year. It looks spectacular. There are some things that I would love to change this fall, and I did kind of talk about it a little bit in prior videos. For example, I removed like half a bed of Pachysandra in here in the spring, And so I really want to add more perennials and some shrubs in here for a little bit more substance in the garden. This bed is mostly filled with, I want to say, seed starts. I mean, I do have a butterfly bush in the back corner, limelight hydrangea, and a limelight hydrangea and a hydrangea paniculata tree. My sunflowers that were along the back are really done. I gotta pull them. You could see these zinnias, even with some of the blooms that are left, are really wrapping things up. You know, they're pretty much done. So I'm gonna be planting this garden over the next week with a bunch of perennials. I've got like, I wanna say 100 perennials coming from proven winners that I've gotta plant. It's gonna be so fun, but a bunch of them are gonna go in here. I'm also gonna be adding a lot more tulips in this garden. I love how it looked last year with the crab apples when they bloomed, and I think it looks so good with that green fence that this bed is getting loaded up. So I am tucking in a few mum's flowers. I added one that's in bloom in the basket just because I wanted that pop of color right now, but I want these chrysanthemums that just have the buzz on them to be out here for a little bit longer and bloom for a little bit longer, because as you know, if you want the longest bloom time from chrysanthemums, you have to get them in this stage where you have all buds and not a lot of blooms. When you buy them, when they're in full bloom like that, you're just not gonna get as long of a bloom time. And for me, that's okay, because I really only need this for a few weeks until the first frost. But anyway, I've got some Sedum Autumn Joy blooming here. That's fabulous. It's doing really well. I do have some Moonbeam Coreopsis that I need to divide. The Ageratum, I love that Ageratum. I started it from seed, and I will 100% be starting it again from seed next year because it was so fun to grow, so beautiful, and I just love it. I love it for drying, I love it in bouquets, and I love it in the garden. And the deer don't bother with it, so it's perfect. I do have Fanflower Whirlwind Pink there, and I added some pumpkins. So I added some sugar pumpkins all along the green fence. Put some flat stacks in here, a couple sugar pumpkins on the table as a really easy centerpiece. I've got my grasses here in my self-watering planter, so I don't need to water them very often. And then here we are in the potager and cut flower garden. So I did figure out what has been getting in my bed, because we installed a Ring camera in the driveway that kind of views the entire driveway. It's a bear. A bear has been coming in here, and I think the bear is what has been eating all of the fennel. Look at this. Like, it's all the way up here and it's been eating it. So I think it's been standing up here and eating the fennel, but it hasn't been touching anything else, because I've got spinach, I've got arugula, and it's just the craziest thing. So parsley still doing really great. I've got some, bunch of herbs over here, some sage, some rosemary, zinnias, again, wrapping it up. I had a whole border of zinnias, celosia, and snapdragons in there, and I think either the rabbit or the groundhog came in and really did a number on my garden. So the only thing that survived in this area were pretty much the zinnias. I do still have some cosmos blooming along the back, but they're pretty much done. This one here, which is kind of wrapping it up, is apricota, and got some nasturtiums that never bloomed, but I started them from seed. Some spinach, some lavender. I really got to do some cleanup in here, but look at those beautiful orange flowers. That is Tithonia, Mexican sunflower, and it overlooks the pond garden, which we have now completely netted so that leaves do not get in the pond, so the fountain's off. I've got some calendula in here and my rose. Isn't that beautiful? I love the color on this one. This one's At Last by Proven Winners. So let's take a look at the cut flower garden. You can see that the zinnias have really called it a day, and I really want to pull them. I really, really, really do. But you know what? They still have some flowers on the top there that are adding texture to the garden. And so I'm gonna leave them till their last breath. I'm gonna leave them. I've got some nasturtiums over here, and on this side in this bed I've got some snapdragons and a bunch of celosia. I've mentioned in prior videos how tall that celosia is. It has to be well over 6 feet tall. I mean, it is in a raised bed, but it has to be well over 6 feet tall. It's huge. My tomatoes are still going. I do have some jalapenos in there and some basil still going. But again, we're starting to see signs of the end of the season. But really, the true gem of this garden right now are the dahlias. They took forever to get going this year, but wow, was it worth the wait? Look at them all. They're doing so well too. And what I want to mention a little bit about them is how cool I think it is that the petals change from season to season. So for example, this is Dahlia Anemone Lifestyle, and in the summer, the blooms were like more of a creamy yellow with a lighter pink. Isn't that so cool? They've gotten like a deeper hue, and it's gorgeous. We've got Dahlia Sweet Suzanne, starting to see signs of aphids on stuff, so really we're getting near the end of the season. Water Lily Cream de Cassis. I gotta get out here and deadhead again. I was just out here making arrangements too. We've got Eveline. Really pretty too in the beginning of their bloom. Look at those little pretty purple centers. We've got Karma Lagoon. This was supposed to be Cornell Bronze. I don't know what it is. I mean, actually, I have to say I'm not too upset about it because I love the color, but it was supposed to be a bronze. Over here, we've got Labyrinth, and up there, I've got Penn Hill Dark Monarch, which actually, if you really want to see the flower, I can't reach that one. But we've got one here. These are Shiloh Noel. Almost looks a little like Cafe au Lait, doesn't it? Really pretty though. Both are really pretty, but I actually ordered this one last year and the batch was mismarked, so I had some red variety of dahlias instead of Shiloh Noel. And I have to say, really, really beautiful, beautiful dahlia. Along here, I've got some marigolds. I have some asparagus that I just planted this year. I had garlic in here, and then I got a deadhead you. This is, let's look at you, you're a little bit prettier. This one is Kogain Fubuki. This one is supposed to be urchin, and it's supposed to have more of a purple hue. I'm not sure why it's red. I don't know if it was mismarked or if it changed, but it is definitely not the purple that I was expecting. And then here we have Cafe au Lait. And I do have Teesbrook Audrey. All right, so moving along the driveway, we don't have as many blooms, and that's because I haven't planted anything. This is a little bit of an issue for me because truck drivers drive into this bed all the time. So I've actually decided to move my Black-Eyed Susans down. So in this bed, it is filled with thousands of daffodils. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my Rudbeckia and I'm just going to make a nice little border of it so that it complements the hardy hibiscus that's finished blooming. And that way it'll have the backdrop of the hardy hibiscus. There won't be this hole here and they won't get driven over by trucks. I definitely need to move plantings down because they just drive through it all the time. It's really hard to keep them from going into the bed. So I was gonna plant, you know, more pansies and mums along here, but I'm just not gonna do that because I don't feel like watching trucks drive over them. So I'm just gonna kind of make some changes here, start moving some of the perennials out and down, and, you know, hopefully fill in the space a little bit more. Now, we've talked about this garden before and it is getting an overhaul. I am going to be removing all of this Pachysandra, all of the Vinca vines that are in here, and the Liriope back there. This is going to be a garden. I just planted a Rose of Sharon and El Nino Chitalpa, if I'm saying that correctly off the top of my head. I have some hydrangeas in here, and I really want to add like some sort of flowering tree here. This used to be like a dead, ugly evergreen tree that we had to take down, and there's a huge stump, and we just need to really overhaul this space. There's poison ivy in here. I have some oh so easy roses that I put in here, and I just want to get all of this out so that I can have a really pretty border when you drive into my driveway. And if we can just kind of stand and look back at my home with the gardens here. Sorry, I'm gonna put my coffee down for a minute. You can see how my zinnias are still blooming and doing really well. I've got some hydrangeas in here. They're definitely a black stem variety. It is getting some new blooms. I didn't deadhead them. The existing blooms that are done are a little fried, but I don't know, I kind of like the texture, so I left them. I have a volunteer celosia, and I have some knockout roses that I planted, some 9-bark. There is a limelight hydrangea in there. I've got a St. John's wort and a couple of viburnums in here that get gorgeous fall color. They bloom in the spring and they get berries. The birds love it. But you can see that ivy that drapes over the wall. It is a monster. And I have to always give it a haircut and cut it back so it doesn't root itself in the ground. I just want that out because you see, like, it's like there's a hole there, right? Like that should just all be blooms. And so I'm seeing that as celosia. Although it would be a little tall, huh? Because you can see how tall it is over there. Maybe that would be a little tall for that spot. I might have to rethink that, but at any rate, it's missing flowers there and it's driving me nuts. Also in this garden, I've got some nepeta, some lavender that has been driven over. I mean, you could see the truck, you can see tire marks. Like, look, you can totally see the tire marks. That's why it's such a waste to plant here, which is a shame because it's really prime for a garden. I really want to get more boulders like that. I feel like if I get more boulders like that, that will help keep the trucks out. We always put these really big pumpkins on top of the pillars. We have to do some weeding, it looks like. And then I take sugar pumpkins and I put them on along the wall. I like to do some corn stalks on the lamppost, and then my limelight hydrangea border. Isn't it beautiful? I've been spraying this with deer repellent so that the deer leave it alone. I did make some cuts to make wreaths, and I'm gonna be out here doing a little bit more. But you can see it's really, I mean, it's weighing down anyway, but look at the blooms. They're so pretty. So I have a few more wreaths that I want to make for inside my home. You know, that one storm that we had in the summer just really took out the shape of these, but you know, still beautiful nonetheless. So one of the beds that I made a change to this year is what I call the rope garden. This is part of the formal garden, and it had nothing planted here. So I decided to test out plants in this garden to see just how deer resistant they are, because I get herds of deer out here and they're insufferable. So I don't want to be spraying out here. I do not want to be spraying out here. It's just too much work. I need this to be low maintenance, and I want to get more flowers out here because, as you can see, it's very green with some beautiful foliage, but I really want to get some blooms out here that don't need me to manage them. So let's talk about what worked and what didn't. So first of all, I do have pink lemonade baptisia that goes all around the base of the sculpture. That was left untouched, did really well. Then you could see I've got cleome, also perfect. Never sprayed it, never touched it. I sprayed nothing in this garden as a test. So this is just planting and deer come through here. I've got some angelonia that, let's see, have they touched it? It looks like we've got a little bit of nibbles, but for the most part, they've left it alone. As you can see, I got some blooms, but there are some nibbles on them. Interesting. They did not touch Sweet Romance lavender. They did not touch Bidens. I know they started snacking on my heliotrope. So heliotrope, they will eat the flowers. They've left the foliage, but they definitely ate the flowers. You can see, like, look at that, look at that. They ate the flowers. But this angelonia they've left alone. So it looks like they snacked, they tasted it, probably didn't like it too much, and they left the rest alone. It smells so good over here. Look at all the bees. So there you have it. I definitely would plant over here again. The Baptisia is going to get bigger. Lavender is going to get bigger. I would definitely do Cleome again. I would definitely do Angelonia again too. I'd probably plant more here in hindsight. I would definitely probably double the amount of plants that I did. I thought they would have a little bit more growth during the season, but they didn't. And I would go more on the Bidens. I really like the colors. I like the white, the pink, the purple, and the yellow. I mean, Sweet Romance Lavender, that is still blooming. It's October. It is October. And this lavender is still blooming. I have other varieties of lavender that are like done. You know, you just have that foliage, but look, it's still blooming. Oh, I gotta come out and dry these. But you gotta remember too that just because a plant is quote unquote deer resistant, it doesn't mean that deer won't touch them. It means it's less likely they'll do damage, but it's not impossible. So again, you know, for the most part, the Angelonia looks good, but they did snack on it. So, you know, you just gotta kind of have to test what is gonna work well in your garden. And this was a really good test. I really wanted to see how well the plants work. To me, this is a good one. I would do it again because look at all the flowers on them. I would just plant more of it. I would plant more densely together and plant more of it so that if they did, you know, snack on a few stalks, I'd still have that color. But look, there's still so many blooms on them. So really, to me, they're a good fit. Heliotrope, if they're gonna eat the blooms right off them, makes no sense to plant that. You know, then we've got lavender, they definitely didn't touch. They did not touch the Cleome, and I know they didn't touch the Baptisia too, especially when it was blooming. So interesting, really interesting experiment. And I will tell you something about my experience with Bidens. This is the first year that I'm growing it. It did not perform super great in the heat of summer. It did not love the summer heat. It started blooming more like this as the temperature started to cool. So just a little note, like it's not like it didn't look good and it wasn't blooming, because it was, but it definitely thrived more as we moved into September this year. Speaking of deer resistant plants, ornamental grasses, Russian sage, they never touch, they leave it alone. This is the entrance to the formal garden. We've got a garden sculpture that was carved from a tree. Former homeowner had it done. I don't know when, I don't know how old it is, but it's kind of cool, right? As we walk down through the formal garden, we've got these beautiful boxwoods. They're doing pretty well. I love this time of year out here. It's so beautiful. As the foliage starts to change. Looking at my sculptures, I do need to get out here and scrub them down. They've got a lot of algae on them. But this is the formal garden. It's a great space. We do come out here. We'll come out here usually with like a glass of wine or something later in the evening on a weekend, just to kind of soak in the sights. Really great space, really peaceful, really quiet. We love it. I do want to plant more out here, particularly along this walkway and around the gazebo, but I really haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm really working on a lot of other spaces first before I get to this. We have a deer problem out here, so I have to be really careful what I plant, and so I'm really sort of taking my time getting to this space before I really plant anything. Last but not least, we have the Zen Garden, and I am starting to bring all my houseplants in, so it's starting to look a little quiet out here with no plants. All my containers are still doing really well. To decorate for fall, all I did was add some sugar pumpkins to the wall. I mean, look at the elephant ears, the caladiums, even the grass looks amazing. Like, it's October and everything still looks really good, so I'm not pulling anything. I've decided not to do any fall plantings back here, and all I'm gonna do is keep the pumpkins. That's it. I do want to dig the elephant ears up. Look at how huge these are. And can we just appreciate apple blossom begonias, because they're a great underplanting. I have it mixed in with Euphorbia Diamond Frost, but I gotta tell you, I may just do the begonias next year. They're just spectacular. But look, this is the size of my hand. And that is the size of one of the foliage. My goodness, it's huge. Ooh, got to do some deadheading on the geraniums. So the plants that I dig up back here are my elephant ears, my caladiums, and I could do the coleus too. Oh, the geraniums, I do the geraniums. I could do the coleus too and overwinter them as houseplants, but I can't be bothered. But I'm really digging the pinks this year. I even added a little pumpkin with my little Buddha statue. And here's the pond with all the fish still intact.
I just want to tell you a little story of something that happened because I did a whole video on my back pond and the heron, the blue heron that was attacking my fish, and we did this whole protective measure to protect the fish in the pond. Well, he hadn't been back in a while, but let me tell you the story real quick. I happened to come outside. It was like the middle of the day. It was probably about an hour after I fed them. And I walked outside, and out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something like really odd. And when I looked, would you believe that blue heron was sitting on the other side of the pond near the fall, and he was just like eyeing the pond. First of all, the Ring camera did not pick it up. He was that stealth. He must have just been moving like sloth slow. And I started screaming at it to, shoo it away, and it flew out. It was ready to eat my fish. Beautiful bird. Beautiful, beautiful bird. Just, I wish he wouldn't snack here. So anyway, so he flew out, hasn't been back since. So what we did was I added extra scat mats around the pond. So in case he comes back and lands there, it kind of bothers his feet. And we added some extra fishing line to kind of hopefully keep it from landing in there, and we'll see what happens. I'll tell you, this is like an ongoing saga.
I do have an asparagus fern that I need to pull out of this pot, and then I'm gonna remove all of the plantings. I may put I may do one fall planting in here. Maybe I'll do pansies in here and see if they come back. And that way I'll get some color here if we get like a mild winter, and otherwise they'll just die, no big deal. This has been pretty effective overall. So pretty happy with this setup, and we'll probably do it again next year. Right now we're kind of debating whether or not we're gonna move the fish indoors into a tank. Have you guys ever done that before? If you have, I would love to hear your experience. Yes, we have a yellow jacket nest over there. Oh, they're nasty. And I have to be honest, since we're nearing the end of the season, I'm kind of done with doing a lot of work, and deadheading and stuff. So I've been kind of letting it go because I'm starting to focus more on planting and dividing and all that good stuff. But, everything still looks pretty good for the most part. I'm really pleased with how the containers look back here. I do want to get more evergreens though, I think, back here. And I mentioned that in my last video where we toured the Zen Garden. I really think I want something just to get a little evergreen interest back here, don't you think? I think we need something a little bit more. Oh, and I am going to be overwintering the bougainvillea. A few of you gave me some tips on how you do it, just bringing it inside, and so I'm just gonna do that. I'm just gonna do it. It's huge. I'm gonna have to dig it out and put it in a different container, but look at it. I mean, it's spectacular. Why waste that? I'm totally digging it up and bringing it in.
that's it, you guys. Thanks so much for joining me in the gardens today. I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy a beautiful day.